Hey everyone, this is Rick Wilson and welcome to Dragonproof. This is our third episode since I started my walkabout thing in the RV. And again, because it's working well with these episodes, I've invited my producer Chris on the show to ask me some questions about this on the road work experiment I'm doing. Welcome, Chris.
Hey, Rick, thanks so much. A little bit of housekeeping before we jump into the episode. Just wanted to let everyone out there know that we have reactivated or waking up our Twitter presence, and wanted to encourage anyone listening to come give us a look and to follow. It's kind of exciting over there.
Yeah, everyone, please do follow us at Dragonproof Pod on Twitter. It'll be the best way to get in touch with us going forward for real-time interactivity.
Plus, lots of wit and insight. Also, no extra charge. That's
free wit. That's a benefit we offer. Free wit.
It's Dragonproof Pod, all one word, at Twitter. Okay. So, Rick, this was actually a pretty huge week for Miva, notwithstanding your trip, right? What's going on in-house?
Yeah, so actually, not only is it a huge week, or has it been a huge week and a half or so since I last recorded with you, today is a huge day. So this morning, September 22nd, 2020, Miva released the latest version of our flagship software, Miva 10. It was 3 years and 11 days in the making to get to the initial release. It is the largest software release we've ever done. And it is just a really critical piece of software. Everything from a new admin user interface that isn't just attractive, but it's much more intuitive. Our design language has really been fleshed out. We have significant new developer tools to make faster for multiple developers to work on a site, and easy for developers and or store owners to see multiple versions of their site without having to have dev sites, etc. Push new versions of the site or new sections of the site live. And finally, some significantly enhanced marketing tools to help increase revenue and ROI for customers. So we couldn't be more proud of the release that went out today. And we were anxious to get it out before Q4 started because we wanted merchants to be able to take advantage of it before the holiday season.
I mean, obviously, this was a long time in the making. Yeah.
Yeah. So
a lot of people worked on this.
Oh yeah, dozens and dozens. And we started planning this probably 3.5 years ago. And the coding on it actually started literally 3 years and 11 days ago. So we had to keep going back into version 9 for different reasons. So that delayed us like probably 18 months. But I think it was worth the wait.
But at no time in that planning did you think, okay, and when this finally comes out 3 years from now, I'm going to be in an RV in the middle of Sidewinder, Arizona, right?
No, never in a million years could I have imagined. Never in a million years could I have imagined both either 2020 or where I would have been this week. But that's how things work sometimes in life and in business. And so when I talked to you guys last, I had been in Lake Tahoe. And I had actually been in a hotel for a couple of days because there was no place to park the RV in Incline Village, and there was some business to handle there. One of our corporate attorneys lives there, and so certainly the hotel. I mentioned this in the last podcast. It had been sort of a brutal journey just to get to Tahoe. I'd taken a 4-hour detour, ended up in a 15-hour day of driving that RV. I was mentally exhausted, to say the least, when I talked to you last. And then the smoke, the air quality is if people are listening to this in some future date, this was during the largest wildfires in California history, or at least that we know of. And this air quality and smoke in Lake Tahoe had become unbearable. So took off from Lake Tahoe after speaking to y'all, and looked at a smoke map, right? Looked at the NOAA, I think it's the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, put out a smoke map, and you could see where all the smoke from Washington to Southern California, there were fires, and you could see where the smoke was going all over the whole country. And there was a gap in the middle that kind of covered most of Nevada, Utah and Arizona. So the decision was made just to sort of meander about in there and see, like, go look at weird little things that I would probably never have taken the time to look at before. Um, and just find a way to unwind and enjoy myself while working on the road,
Well,
which
when
was
I
the original
spoke
intent.
to you last, you sounded pretty worked. Basically the effort of getting the trip together and leaving the house and just getting out really is exhausting, right? So at some point that wears off and then the real adventure begins. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So left Lake Tahoe and took Highway 50 across out of Incline Village and across Nevada all the way to the Utah border where Ely, Nevada is. And this is a little bit of marketing on the state of Nevada's part, but they bill Highway 50 as the loneliest highway in America. And there's a bunch of random stuff on Highway 50. There's a random tree in the middle of nowhere that people have hung a bunch of tennis shoes from. There's just really weird stuff you see out there. But it was this gorgeous, like, meditative drive across. There's a lot of hot springs out there, and just strange and like desolate strange, but not like Tarantino desolate strange. More like rejuvenating desolate strange.
Hmm.
Like you're in this like sort of Alice in Wonderland desert. And so got to Ely, Nevada after leaving Tahoe, and then stayed at a KOA campground. That was actually the first night of the trip, really staying in the RV and like got used to doing all the RV things, getting my RV sea legs back. Then the next day, went down Nevada Highway 6. There was this abandoned hot spring that I wanted to go check out that was right where highway in a ghost town, right where Highway 6 meets what they call Alien Highway in Nevada, the highway that leads to Area 51. And so it's this really weird intersection. Like you get to this intersection, you're in the middle of nowhere, and to your right, there's a building, like a pool building, the kind of place you'd go and have a bathroom or a change. And then there's a pool, like an actual pool, concrete in the ground, and it's filled with hot spring water that's literally just running down the side of the hill. So it's kind of running down this little, a creek would be an overstatement, but there's like a groove in the desert and hot spring water is just flowing steadily. But this whole thing is fenced up, and there's a bunch of signs: don't go in the water, stay out, no swimming, blah blah blah. So didn't do that. And luckily, I had a little thing that you could point at the water and see the temperature, and the temperature of the water is 120 degrees. So I'm still confused on who had the brilliant idea to build an actual concrete swimming pool for
Was
120
this
degree water.
your COVID thermometer? You pointed.
No, no, no. This is like more like barbecue style one where you just,
All
it's like
right.
an infrared. You point it at something and it gives you the answer. And it's good for things like hot springs. So this is a fascinating, great photos there. This is a fascinating little sojourn. And then drove down, I think it's Arizona or Nevada 347, which is what they call extraterrestrial highway, and drove out past, the little alien. If you've ever watched that UFO stuff on the various channels like Discovery, and you saw like the UFO people out there, like looking, like there was tourists out there camping, like trying to like check out Area 51 and all that stuff. It was really trippy, but it was easy to stop in those places for a little bit and check email and answer things and keep on moving.
Well, with
And
the release of Miva 10, I mean, this whole time, there's got to be 100 things you need to do every day for that. So
yeah, so
how
at
do you
this
do it?
point, let me think about where I was calendar wise. What I'm describing to you happened a week ago Monday. So I don't have a calendar handy right in front of me, but if today's the 22nd, it would have been around Monday the 14th or whatever. And so I was a little bit out. I didn't have a lot of day to day. I personally didn't have a lot of day to day tasks around the Miva 10 launch, other than checking in with the marketing and product team to see where we were. So I had a lot of check ins going. So there was a lot of email communications with the team. And then we use a version of Slack. It's an open source alternative to Slack called Rocket Chat. So every time I stopped, I was pretty much would stop for one of three reasons: to answer emails and make sure I was on top of things. I would stop to answer Rocket Chats and or ask questions via Rocket Chat. And then third is I still had all my normal scheduled calls this whole trip. So I'd stop, I'd sort of plan my pacing so that I could stop somewhere where I had good cell phone service or internet service so I could take calls. And so So at that point, it was fairly easy. But that brings me to kind of what happened next, which is from the Area 51 stuff, which was a little bit of sightseeing while keeping up on stuff at work. It became obvious that it was time to get settled for a week, and so did one more single night at Lake Mead, which was gorgeous, and got dangerously close to Las Vegas. Glad I avoided Las Vegas.
Good move.
But yeah, but went and stayed at Lake Mead for a night, and Lake Mead's gorgeous. And then ultimately kicked myself down to Sedona, and stayed in Sedona for 5-6 nights. And so that one of the principles I would say I learned is, it's one thing to go change place every night. It's harder to do your work when you're doing that, right? Because you get up in the morning and you do stuff like go to the bathroom and shower and brush your teeth and eat some food, and then you're like, oh, I got to drive somewhere, and so you're really just doing maintenance level work at that point, answering phone calls, taking phone calls, answering chats and emails. And so what I found is, the next time I try this experiment, I'll be a little more diligent about stays of 3, 4, 5 days. And so as opposed to trying to see a bunch of stuff in a 2-week window, if I was doing another 2-week project, I'd probably have 3 stays in me of 4 days each, and minimize the single overnights. Because it's actually, once you get your RV legs back, and this whole idea of not just this being a vacation, but being able to work from wherever I was, you get set up, and you make sure you have access to power or your generator, and you have your internet's decent, and then you find a groove. I had my whole laptop set up on my little dining room table, and I was able to just work. And some of the most productive days I've had in the last 6 months happened in that RV over the last 9 days, 10 days.
That's really magic. I mean, we should talk some more about the RV. Because we talked a little bit about it last time, that it's this sort of self-sufficient silo almost. It just has like a little bit of input, a little bit of output. Right? The input is food, gas.
Yep.
The output in your case is probably data, internet, Zoom, blog, stuff like that, like needs to leave the RV. Otherwise, it's totally self-contained.
Yep.
I mean, businesses kind of find themselves in that situation right now. Not everyone has a literal RV. I mean, no one has a literal RV except for you. But
not no one. Some people do. But yes, you're correct. It is
no one in this
common.
Chat has an RV except for you. But
I'll loan you the RV.
Yeah, thanks a lot. But I think there's a metaphorical tie, like to the situation that a lot of ourselves obviously find ourselves in right now, and being in these like little self-contained, hermetically sealed silos, kind of bopping around on our own.
Yeah, no, I agree. In fact, from a Dragonproof perspective, and I think I didn't necessarily fully realize this before I set out on this journey, but during the journey, 2 things became obvious to me. One is I'm planning on trying to do these at least once every 2 months, at least until travel, et cetera, goes back to normal, if it ever does. Because for my own peace of mind, getting out on the road was one of the best choices I've made in 2020. And I hadn't fully realized personally before, and I think this is a Dragonproof concept. One of the things that kept me, functional, happy, stable, effective, dynamic, pre-pandemic and quarantine, was that I was always, this just wasn't visible to outsiders, but I was a routine traveler, right? So I would out be traveling, and that was a process I would use to come back and be energized for Miva. And when that process got short-circuited by COVID and quarantine, it took me a while to realize it had been short-circuited, right? It's sort of like the proverbial frog in the pot that's getting warmer and warmer, and then when you realize you're boiling, it's a little too late. So going on the road is going to be a part of my future for the foreseeable future. I also have a side prediction that COVID and quarantine is going to cause a rebirth of the RV industry, like sort of like a 50s heyday of traveling around. So that's kind of neat if it comes to fruition. But the other thing that came out of this trip was I wanted to figure out what worked and what didn't work, which we've talked about before. And you're right, the RV is a fairly set of inputs, right? You need to make sure your propane's full and your water tank's full and your gas tank's full. You got food in the fridge and in the cupboards, and you've got your stuff to function. The only thing I would really have added to the RV, and what I will add for the next trip, is you can use your phone as a hotspot, but I forgot that they limit the data, right? So at some point I had maxed out the data my phone would kick over to my laptop. Luckily, a lot of the places I went, the RV parks had a Wi-Fi, but I'm going to get an actual hotspot like the old ones, business people used to carry around, the little pucks, because you can get something close to unlimited data on them. But if not, I think my phone gave me 100 megs of downloads or a gig of downloads, but not much compared to what I need for running a business. And the hotspots can give you 8, 16 unlimited. So I'm going to set up a hotspot in the RV that acts like a Wi-Fi router. Then all I really need to do to be able to do what I just did is have a coverage map and know where there's coverage, right? So that's critical. You don't want to suddenly find out, oh shoot, I got a big meeting today and I've got to go do this. But from Sedona, Arizona, I had 2 days of 6 hours worth of meetings back to back. So it was a week ago today and a week ago tomorrow. Basically, at night I, went out and enjoyed the desert sky, and there was a hot tub at that RV park, and I took my dogs for a walk. But for those 2 days, I worked from my little dining room table in the RV as if I was at my, Miva's old headquarters, full day, and it worked great. There was no problems. But that is when my phone alerted me that I had hit my cap. And so I did all that. And so you're right. You can build a battle plan for doing this and letting it work. And I think I achieved that.
It seems like the more self-sufficient you are, and in your case, you're talking about, being self-sufficient for internet connection, as simple as that, but being self-sufficient is what gives you the freedom then to go.
Absolutely. And that's why it was worthwhile to do a test run, right? I could have literally just done a test run staying within 100 miles of my house. That would have been as effective as long as I got out of civilization, right? Maybe 200 miles of my house, since I live in Southern California and we have sprawl here. But, it wasn't about how far away from home I went. It was definitely just testing the ability to function from anywhere. And what do you need? What do you don't need? I would definitely pack very different for the next trip.
Right. So obviously it's not a big stretch at all to apply that to running a business. So what am I going to pack for next season? Like, there's a great analogy, right? So let's say you're running a business. What are you packing for next season, metaphorically?
I think you start with the self-sufficiency part, right? So you just make sure you've got your, basic I's dotted and T's crossed. So for a business, that's things like, am I collecting my money properly? Am I paying my bills properly? Am I paying my employees properly? Like, are the basic systems, think of it like blood circulating through your body and your organs working? Are the basic systems functioning? And then second from that, then I think you move into intentions, right? So I had a number of intentions that I wanted to set, and I set those at the beginning of the trip, and I journaled during the trip and made sure that was a part of this trip, that the purpose was that. And I think, that's one of those things that it's easy to say to do, but like most people, I've known about that stuff for a long time, and my actual discipline at doing it is rarely that great. But those are the things that I think can help you stay self-sufficient and help you pack for the next season. And more importantly, help you be adaptable to the next season. Even today, I'm currently back at my house in San Diego for 24 hours, probably less. I got here at about 2:10 p.m. today, California time, and I'm planning on leaving tomorrow around noon to go back out. And it was just a pit stop. And of course, I came in and I'm recording with Chris today, and I was just besieged by technical difficulties. My computer, my home computer that has my podcast mic, I couldn't get my trackpad to work, and my laptops are still buried in the RV. And so we're actually winging this from my phone today. And so I've got my AirPods in, and I'm staring at Chris on my iPhone, and we're winging this that way.
This is a phenomenon that we know of from Burning Man as well, about reintegrating with what we call the default world. And these kind of frictions, the simplest little things like, my trackpad doesn't work, like, is a classic. You reintegrate,
throw the whole thing off.
But usually in those, alternative communities, it's because we're judging the default world, That's why we talk about it.
Yeah, but I would say this. Most, if you don't know what Burning Man is, or you've only heard of it loosely, not to make a commercial about an event that may or may not ever happen again, depending on pandemic. Um, what I've always found interesting about Burning Man is the number of business people and people who I would say live a dragon-proof lifestyle attend Burning Man, right? And I think that comes very specifically from having thought out as many scenarios as you can, but writing all of your goals in pencil and adjusting in real time, being in a flow state to manage in real time, which is what I'm describing by us recording via my phone and AirPods because my trackpad wouldn't work. But yeah, integration with the reality that you're living in. You take your goals and your intentions and you integrate those with the reality you're living in, and you find a way to make it work without destroying your ship upon the rocks.
So how are you feeling like right now? The last time we talked, you were tired, but you sound really like something has moved, even though you're cheating in your house. Like, how do you feel at the moment?
I haven't been at my house long enough today to enjoy any of the fruits of my house. In fact, my house has been my sole source of frustration today because of my tech problems. But I actually feel great. Energy level wise, I feel fantastic. I've been exercising more while on the road. I've been eating better. Almost no restaurant food. Went out to one restaurant, went to Starbucks twice maybe. All of it otherwise was prepared in the RV, drinking a ton of water, having some fun. Rented a lifted Jeep one day to go on the trails in Sedona, which was phenomenal. And this isn't just randomly driving around on wilderness. They have actual marked trails that the Forest Service prepares, so you're not out there just killing the environment.
Good.
But it was really a rejuvenating trip, and I expect the rest of it to be rejuvenating, even with whatever challenges may come.
I'm sure it gave you some perspective, just because you left your world, and so now you're looking back at your world from out there, and it must look a little bit different. I mean, definitely the Miva 10 release moment. How did you feel leading into that, and how do you feel about it now that we're here on the day that's happening?
So let's talk about the Miva 10 release, like last few days and how that went. So it was still in Sedona. It was about 6 p.m. Friday night, and our CTO messaged the senior management channel internally and said version 10 is ready for release. And that actually didn't mean we were going to go turn it on for the public. What that meant, that started a series of things in action, right? So our network architects had to get some stuff deployed and tested, which they'd been working on. So it wasn't like we were surprised, but we had to get that done. And so that was, we got the test servers spun up Friday and let them run for the weekend to make sure there was no problems. And then yesterday we were very focused on getting the Miva engine, which is what had to be updated, pushed out to all of our sites. And then I was also working a lot with marketing and product to understand the communications flow to our customer base, and really just trying to coordinate a response, because there's a number of things that happen when you release new software, especially new software that's got a new admin interface, right? So I believe by January, 98, 99% of our customers were like, wow, this is a phenomenal release. You guys have done great work. Thank you. But for people who, their day-to-day job is to go in and click around, some of those people this morning woke up and clicked a button and suddenly it looked different. And that can be jarring to them. So we were preparing, our tech support team was prepared for that. And all those things. So I really got into working with the marketing team yesterday and today. I'd been working with them all along, watching the content they were creating. But suddenly it's like game day. And then I step in as quarterback to work with all that stuff. Now my team's still doing the heavy lifting. I'm just the guy tossing a ball. But it was great. And then this morning when it was 5 minutes to 10 and we were releasing at 10, I still was not back in San Diego. I haven't even started getting back to San Diego at that point. I was a few hours north. I was in Rocket Chat talking to my CTO, and we were just talking about this and that's and the new Apple Watch. And he's like, okay, you ready to pull the trigger? And I was like, well, let's do it. And it was just an exhilarating moment to push it out there and then log into my own store and upgrade it and play around. And, it's a really exciting day. And I think I'm very proud to be a part of Miva today because of it.
It's really great. And I've been hearing about this for a long time. So congratulations on that. And I'm glad you were able to do that while you were still mobile. So, I mean,
I mean, I think that kind of proves the point of the trip, right?
Yeah. So final thoughts. Like, obviously, just like not everyone has an RV, not everyone can go on a trip like this right now or have that flexibility in their life. And we're all dealing with a lot. Every single person is dealing with a lot right now. So do you have any insight that you can share just basically about how to get through feeling blocked, feeling stuck in the status quo, or feeling tired, like with how you're running your shop or your life? What's some kind of general like insight that you can give me on that if I can't get in an RV and drive away right now?
Sure. So, I mean, I mean, yeah, it's RV is part of the story, but I think it's actually more even about time. How much time can you use to get away? And acknowledging that you're stuck, right? And that was true for me too. I was very much stuck before this trip. And so I would argue that most everyone who would be listening to this and following Dragonproof could find an hour or two in a week to go take a break of some sort. Now, I will also acknowledge that there are some people in our society who don't have that privilege, and that's a different conversation, not for this podcast. But for business owners and people who listen to this podcast and people who are aspiring to Dragonproof their lives, being stuck, really the way you get unstuck is having a paradigm shift. And a paradigm shift can come in an hour if you go to a new park you've never been to and set up a picnic and lay there and stare at the sky and journal or talk to a friend. I mean, it really is just about shifting perspective more than it was the toyness of an RV or the ability to, travel through 3 or 4 states. So I think that the first tip I would give is find an hour or two and go do something that is totally outside of your routine that causes you relaxation and joy. Well,
I love it and I want it. So see ya.
You have to be willing to leave your house, Chris.
All right. Well, thank you for that update. Just reminding everyone listening, please check us out at Dragonproof Pod on Twitter. It's really great. That's where I'm going to be going for my R&R right after this session. So Rick, where are you going next?
I'm actually heading back out to the desert. I'm heading to Palm Springs and Indio area. And I'll be in California the rest of this trip, but I'm going to be out enjoying in the high desert and the low desert, from Joshua Tree to Coachella area to Palm Springs and kind of out in that range.
Okay, awesome. Hope you have a great time. We'll check in with you again. Stay safe, wear your mask, and have a great time.
Thanks, Chris. Everyone follow us at Dragonproof Pod on Twitter, and I will talk to you next week.